In this episode, we will find out if I can use AI to tune my PVK style carburetors on my racing lawnmower. I run a dual cut setup with two 34mm PVK style carburetors, which means I have a lot of adjustments. I can adjust the idle jet, the main jet for full throttle, the needle for the mid-range, and the air screw, as well as a full throttle fuel screw. That is a lot of adjustment. And I suck at carb tuning. So let's see if I can tune it with ChatGPT. So I'm just gonna start asking a question and see how it goes from there. So I'm gonna ask it, I want to tune my racing lawnmower. I run a Tecumseh 2-cylinder 20 horsepower engine with two 34mm PVK carburetors. I want to record the engine and then you tell me how I need to adjust it. So it asked me a bunch of questions and basically I told ChatGPT my setup, which type of engine I run, which types of jets I have, which settings those different jets are, the max RPM, type of fuel, my exhaust setup, ignition setup. So what I will do now is just give it a moment, let it warm up a little bit, and then start recording it. That was lucky. I forgot to lift the rear end. I'm such an idiot. I could just see that. Oh, it started moving. Shit. Always lift your rear end if you want to test stuff with the wheels. That could have gone so wrong. I'm so freaking lucky sometimes. Now that disaster is avoided, let's try to start it again. On my RPM tacho, I can also see the temperature of the spark plug. So that seems good. I'm just asking if it wants an audio or video file. And it prefers video. So let's just go over how I should record it again so I remember it. First, 20 seconds idle. Then I should roll up to half throttle. I should take 5 seconds to get there and then hold it for 3. And then get it close to full throttle for 3 seconds. And let's start it up. So now I will upload this video. I finally got the file uploaded. And then it says, well, I need to be upfront. I can't actually process files like that. And then I asked, do you prefer an audio file? Can't do that either. So basically it tells me, no need to upload the file because I'm gonna ask you a lot of questions, then you can answer them, and then I can help you do this. It really sounded like it wanted a file from me to figure out how it goes, but it can't do that. I need to answer a couple of questions. Question 1. When the engine is fully warm and idling, does the idle stay steady and smooth, hang high before dropping down, sound uneven, loopy, maybe actually, because I felt it was like steady and then it said boop, louder than the other ones. So I think it's C. So what I will do now is go 1/4 rotation at a time with both carburetors and see if the RPM goes up before it drops. For each quarter turn, I will hold one finger in, so we start at 6, and then we go to 5, 4, and so on. So let's go for that. So we are 1340. And what it's still a bit of unevenness. Idle went up. So we had 5 and it went up. Idle went up. So we had 4. Idle went down. Idle went down and we had 3. We go back. Idle went up. We're at 4. Okay. So let's write the answers if I remember them correctly. So I wrote RPM is going up before it's dropping. It got better when I got the screws further in. The peak RPM when it was 1 rotation out, Chad told me to change the pilot jet to a more rich one. And I was a little bit confused and asked it, well, I have a air fuel ratio gauge, which shows me that it's running rich. And it said that is possible. So let's just trust it for now and change the pilot jet to one size bigger and then go from there. This is called a jet. It has a couple of holes on the side and on the top, and it basically lets the fuel go up. By adjusting the size of the hole, you're able to adjust the flow rate. And you don't need to over tighten this at all. It's only brass, so it's soft. So if it's tight, it's tight. I'm just asking how I should test it next. So it tells me set both air screws to 1.5 turns. So I screw it all the way in, and then half, 1, 1.5. Same with the other one. The idle screw I shouldn't change. Idle test. It says hands off throttle. Is the idle smoother than before? So I told it that it runs choppy, running uneven, sounds fuller and stronger. So it expects that we went from lean to slightly rich. So what I want to do now is turn the engine on and play a little bit with the air screw, going 1/4 rotation at a time and figuring out at which spot the RPM is the highest, but also runs consistent. I will go 1 carb at a time and then figure it out from there. So I just confirmed it's running much better, it's running clean. Now what it wants me to do is this throttle snap. So I start the engine and I go from 0 to 3/4 throttle quickly, like. Definitely hesitates. So I'm gonna select B. So far, it's not the quickest way of doing it, but I feel I steadily get closer to a better running engine. If you're not sure about all the component names and stuff I'm talking about now, I made a video last week where I go over these carburetors I have, explain all the different components and the names and what they do in theory, and then I fucked it up by not being able to tune it properly, so that's why I'm here. So now I need to adjust the needle and make it one step richer. I don't know if you can see it from there, but this thing, that's the needle. As I said, this is the needle. There are 5 slots, and I can move the C-clip either up and down. And if I move the C-clip down, the needle will raise and thereby let more fuel through. I just told it that I changed the needle position, and I have to do the same test again. I will let it idle for 20 to 30 seconds, and then flip it to 3/4 throttle. And then also, after that, go from 0 to half throttle over 4 to 5 seconds. So just to sum up what I texted with chat right now, I probably went the wrong direction. Especially the slow pull sounded awful, and it might just be that it's too rich. And if I look at my RF gauge, it still says rich, but I'm not sure about if I can trust that one anyways. It was at position 4, and I changed it to 5, meaning full rich, so I will change it to position 3. As you probably already noticed, the windows are bright again, so it's the next day. I started with putting the needles in a different position. It's now in the middle position, step 3 instead of 5. And I just asked ChatGPT of what I should do. And it basically goes through the same 4 tests again, where first I need to check my idle. But as always, I need to let it run a little bit, get up to temperature. I will just let it idle for a little bit. So I wrote now in the idling test, it runs smooth at 1700 RPM. In the second test, where I slowly get up to 50% throttle, I wrote that it was smooth in the beginning, but got more and more choppy. In test 3, which is 3/4% throttle as a snap, so going fast, I wrote that it was okay, but a bit delayed, just a tiny bit. But when I give full throttle, I can stop the engine with it. Let me see what it says. So I gave it my answers, and instead of changing anything right now, it would like to do some other tests to really figure out what to do. What I want me to do is basically test half throttle, 3/4 throttle, and full throttle. So let's get on with that. It's getting a bit too loud. Okay, now the full throttle test, if it allows it. Hold it for 2 to 3 seconds. Basically, I did 3 tests. 1 half throttle, where it sounded decent. 3/4 throttle, where it sounded a little bit surgy. Surgy means that the RPM goes a little bit up and down, like it's trying to idle or find the spot, but it's never quite getting there. So it's like something like that. And in full throttle, you could really hear that it couldn't find the spot. So what it says, needle clip is probably correct. Main jet, likely too big. What? Nothing I ever did was too big. So it tells me to go 1 step smaller in my main jets. And those are the main jets. One of them is bigger than the other. And that's the one I took out. And one of them is smaller than the other. That's the one I put in. I changed the main jets, and I should do a couple of tests. Half throttle, 3/4 throttle, full throttle, and all of them roll in smooth and keep holding it for 3 to 4 seconds. So let's do that. I presented the findings to chat. I basically said that 3000 RPM sounds pretty good. 4000 RPM sounds pretty smooth. 5000 RPM, it's still a little bit surgy. But when I blip this throttle to 3/4, it hesitates. And if I do it to full throttle, it can die. If I just keep holding it at full throttle, the engine will stall. And chat told me that the slight surging and higher RPMs can be that the throttle cable doesn't pull even, meaning that one might open a tiny bit more than the other. So I will use this set here over here to see what is the gap the carburetor is right now. Let's go for another test where I hold the engine at 3,500 RPM, and then I need to listen if it's a static rhythm, ba 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 ba, or ba 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 ba, something like that. So I don't know, but let's try it. At 3,500, it sounds pretty steady to me. It sounds really good. So I got a response from it, which basically says, the pilot jet is correct, needle clip 3 is very close, main jet correct, carb sync, good at mid-range RPM. So the engine is basically tuned, it's what it says. But I have a final question, and that is, how can I change it that if I go full throttle right away, that it doesn't die? So basically it says, let's improve the quick throttle response. Best fix in order of... So the reason why it happens... That's oil. Shit. Where did that come from? Shit. Not sure what this came. There's a giant puddle of oil. There are no bits in it though, so that's at least something, and I think it just came out of the breather tube. Just checking my air filters, if the oil came out of that or not. I don't think so. Honestly, I think it's the breather tube. Well, that was scary. When I saw the puddle of oil, I was hoping that the engine wasn't toast. I did a compression test and everything is fine. I also checked inside the air filters, there was no oil. The only place there was oil leaking was the breather tube. And I also checked the dipstick. It wasn't particularly low. When I looked at the oil, it looked fine. It didn't smell like fuel and there was no chunks in it. The main reason why this happened was I had the rear end lifted by like 10 centimeter. Plus it's already in a little bit of aggressive angle, so the motor was just leaned too far forward. And revving it up to 5,000 and maybe a little bit more than that in that angle for actually quite some hours. Not constantly, but the entire tuning probably took me 8 to 10 hours. There were breaks and this and that, but it took quite some hours. So I think that combination made the engine a little bit sad, but the engine is fine. And what I will do is install a catch can. But that said, let's answer the question of the title. Can ChatGPT tune the carburetors of my racing lawnmower? Well, it's not a full yes and it's not a full no. Originally, I thought I could just send an audio file and it could tell me what it hears and how to adjust it. That wasn't the case. The process took probably like 8 to 10 hours. So it's also not something I can just do quickly. And the way it did it was, for example, okay, listen to the idle. Does it run smooth? Does it run rough? How does it change when you turn the idle screw? Try to hit the point with the highest RPM and so on. And I did those things, followed the instruction as good as I could and tried to give good, clear feedback. And it took that and computed and gave me a new task. It went the right way. First, it checked how is the idle. Then it went to adjust the pilot jet, the needle, the main jet, and throughout those, it always wanted me to test and go maybe one up or one down and see what is best. However, it's my responsibility what I change. So it's not just ChatGPT, but you also have to think about things. And that is the important point. You have to figure out what information does Chat need and what does it give you back, and does that information fit to what you say and what you hear and what you feel. So it's not as simple as just saying, okay, I'm just your arms and legs and I turn off my brain. You still have to think. But I think it's a good tool for people like, for example, me, who have tuned some engines but never got it fully right. And just having the step-by-step tutorial on how to do it. Because in the end, it's just like calling a mate, asking him a bunch of questions. He can't really hear the engine, but he can tell you some feedback on what you hear and what you want to hear. So is it the best way of doing it? Of course not. The best way would be your mate having here and showing you what he tunes and how to do it. But it's a tool and it's definitely helped me out. And as you can see here, compared to here, my engine runs much more smooth throughout the rev range. The oil puke, it's not Chat's fault, that's my fault. I hope this was interesting to you. I actually quite like this little experiment. and I'm glad the engine runs better. In the next episode, I will drive it. However, I won't be able to do that this episode. But with that, thank you so much for watching. If you want to watch another of my videos about carburetors, click over here. Please consider subscribing if you're still watching. Good. Bye!